It's the e-commerce master plan podcast. Here to help you solve your marketing problems and grow your e-commerce business. Cutting through the hype to bring you inspiration and advice from the e-commerce sector and beyond. Here's your host, Chloe Thomas.
Hello, welcome to our latest podcast. I'm Chloe and it's great to have you out there listening. I hope the podcast is continuing to bring you some inspiration, some ideas, and even maybe some reassurance that what you're doing in your business is the right thing. Today, I've got some interesting stuff to share with you.
Interesting stuff.
This is a fairly new section still of the show, and it's where I bring you anything particularly interesting I found out about recently in the e-commerce world, or anything particularly useful, really. This might be an event, a white paper, a new supplier, or just something really cool and useful I think you should know about. You can find all the interesting stuff we cover, organised by episode at ecommercemasterplan.com/stuff. And there might not be interesting stuff in every episode. We're just going to see how it goes. Well, today I've got two pieces of interesting stuff for you. Now, a little apology for this one, but I think you're going to find it worthwhile. I know I said this is a COVID-19 free zone, but I just had to let you know about Klaviyo's COVID-19 pulse check. Not because they're a sponsor of the show, but because I believe what they're doing is going to help so many of you navigate these uncharted waters. Klaviyo are currently compiling a survey every day, that's every single day, to check the pulse of the industry during the pandemic. If you're contributing, you'll get access to the results, which is sure to be very useful. So please take part, because the more retailers who submit each day, the better quality data you're going to get back to help you make your decisions. A new survey goes live daily. To find it, just go to the Klaviyo homepage and scroll until the survey link pop-up opens. It seems to appear bottom right of the screen quite quickly. Click on that and just fill in the data. Simple as that. The second piece of interesting stuff, well, I'm doing a webinar with Magento. Yes, in late April, I'm going to be speaking on a webinar hosted by Magento. I'll be sharing tips and advice in a session called Improve Your Customer Journey, the Best Ways to Improve Sales at Each Stage. We all know it's easy to focus on just one element of the customer journey, but to maximise the performance of your business, it's crucial to improve performance at every stage of the customer journey. And that's just what I'm going to be telling you about on the webinar. You can find all the details of it and how to register via the link on ecommercemasterplan.com/stuff. In today's episode, we are talking about PR and how to get friendly with journalists to get those inbound links and that long-term evergreen content. We are talking about building a remote team. We are talking about steadily building your business, bootstrapping or organic growth, if you like. We are talking about D2C and selling direct to consumers together with balancing that with wholesale. We're talking about attending trade shows and increasing your wholesale base. We are also talking about taking the time to get your products spot on before you try and go big. I think you're going to enjoy it, but before we get into it, please do check out the sponsors. This podcast is sponsored by Klaviyo, the most recommended growth marketing platform on the market. Klaviyo helps more than 28,000 e-commerce brands globally to grow their businesses through high-value customer relationships. From a shopper's first impression to each subsequent purchase, Klaviyo understands every interaction, empowering brands to create more personalised marketing moments. When you have a 360-degree view of the customer, the growth possibilities are endless. And the results speak for themselves. Klaviyo customers have made more than £2.8 billion in revenue through Klaviyo in the last year alone. Visit klaviyo.com/masterplan. That's KLAVIYO.com/masterplan. With SendPro Online from Pitney Bowes, you can simply print postage stamps and shipping labels even when working remotely. For as low as $4.99 a month, you'll get access to special discounts and save up to 40% off USPS Priority Mail. Plus, for being an e-commerce master plan listener, you'll receive a free 30-day trial to get started and a free £10 scale to ensure that you never overpay. That includes being able to schedule package pickups and track shipments from departure to arrival. Go to pb.com pb.com/masterplan to access this special offer for a free 30-day trial plus a free £10 scale to get started. That's pb.com/masterplan to experience savings in your shipping costs with a free trial of Sempro Online from Pitney Bowes. And now to introduce today's special guest. Dhruvin Patel is an optometrist and founder of Ocushield. It's a screen protector designed and developed to protect your eyes, sleep, and device screens. They were founded in 2015 and now process over 2,000 orders a month. Since 2015, they've sold over 100,000 products direct to consumers, as well as through wholesale to retailers such as Selfridges and Urban Outfitters. They've also worked with the Wales international rugby team and West Ham United Football Club to improve player game day performance. Hello, Dhruvin.
Hi, Chloe.
How are you doing?
I'm really well. How are you?
Yeah, good. I'm excited to. Well, I'm a bit of a rugby fan myself, so I was in the intro. I was struggling to not just say Wales. They've worked with Wales because that's how I think of them. So it's quite a mouthful to actually say the full team's name. But no, I'm excited to find out how your product is helping people and how you're leveraging that to grow the business too. But before we kind of get into all of that, how did you get started in e-commerce?
Yeah, sure. So a really good question. So my background in kind of the years 2013 to 15, I was studying optometry at university. At the time, I was doing some research on how something known as harmful blue light affects the eye's physiology and circadian rhythms. Mm-hmm. And I came across research which was pointing to, screens are affecting our eyes, causing headaches, eye strain, and also affecting the way we sleep. And I quickly realized at that point, screens were only getting bigger and brighter, and I wanted to create a product which I could use for myself, selfishly to protect my eyes from blue light. Because at the time when I was working in opticians, there was actually a coating for people that wore glasses, prescription glasses. And my kind of journey began from there, was developing a specification and formulation for this product, and getting this product manufactured. And my first point of call to start generating some orders was to put up a website. I believe it was a Wix website at the time. So I did it myself. Yeah, really old school. I believe they're still going. But yeah, I created a website and I started accepting pre-orders kind of in 2014. And from there, I believe I got 500 pre-orders before I even ordered any stock. Wow. So that's where the e-commerce journey started for me.
Very cool. And what we should let's clarify that, because we've had people on the show before talking about blue light and vaguely medical things. And I know some of the listeners get quite angsty if we don't clarify the legal medical side of things. Sure. So what we should say is that you are medically approved, aren't you? The Ocushield is a medically rated product.
That's correct. Yeah. So, we're a healthcare company in what we do. So there's a, similar to the FDA in USA, in the UK, there's an organization called MHRA, which is a Medicines and Healthcare Regulatory Agency. So we're the only screen protector in the world which is actually a class 1 medical device. And what that means is our products do what they say, and they're also safe for the market.
Very cool. Thank you for that. So you're in the UK. Are you selling globally or just to the UK?
Yeah, so last year we shipped products to over 65 countries. Our biggest markets are the UK and the USA.
Cool. And what platform are you using these days? I think you said it's not Wix anymore.
That's correct, yeah. So we use WordPress with WooCommerce.
Cool. And given you're on WordPress and the WooCommerce plugin, you must have a couple of other platform plugins even that you like.
Yeah, definitely. So I think what's really helped WordPress and WooCommerce for us is a platform called Meteoric. And, if anyone's on WordPress, they know the reporting on WordPress isn't that great. Meteoric is a system which allows us to see reporting of orders, customer data, demographics, variations. It just compiles data in such a way that you can actually get some key insights for it and drive revenue and growth. So Meteoric is a great platform for any WordPress business owner.
Nice. It's not one I've heard of before. How are you spelling it?
So it's Meteorik.
Oh, I was one letter out. But I'm sure the listeners were also going, how do you spell that?
Maybe I'm pronouncing it wrong. Meteorite? It might be meteorite.
I would say meteoric. I had a C at the end, not a K. So, I'd say we're pretty close on that.
Yeah.
But yeah, cool. So meteoric with a K at the end for all your WordPress stats. Excellent. And how many of you are there in the team now?
Yeah, good question. So I think to give some context onto this is when I started the business, I was at university. And as an optometry student, you also have to qualify after university. So I did 2 years with Specsavers and Boots opticians while I was still growing the business while working part-time. So I've always had to find a way to grow the business with staff, where I'm not able to actually look after them or manage them. So we have a team of 6 core staff members, which are all a remote team. We have another 3 which are part-time, and our team is based across the globe, from USA to Europe. One of our team members is actually a digital nomad, so she moves around quite a bit, so I can never know where she is. And we have some in India. And then, for e-commerce business, we outsource things to, for a third-party logistics center who deal with all of our orders and shipping to B2B as well. And we also use a pay-per-click agency to support our online endeavors.
Very nice. And so one of them is a digital nomad. She could be anywhere in the world. There are people who can't cope with the idea of people not being within their line of sight, who are just going, whoa, how do you do that?
No.
And I know that, let's just talk about that whole remote team thing. I'm guessing because you were having to work as an optometrist, it kind of happened by accident for you. But have you got any tips or tricks for anyone who's thinking of going down that road to help them make it work? Because there are certain ways of making it work, aren't there?
100%. I think, I'm a big advocate when it comes to remote working and outsourcing. I think, especially when, you're in a city like London, for myself, I think there's lots of money pouring into London through venture capitalists, and it's kind of boosting the salaries of any good talent. And I think as any lean business that's growing, you want access to good talent, but you don't want to pay that yearly salary that they may be on, because obviously overheads can shrink any business. So there's great talent out there in other cities in the UK, Leeds, Manchester, or even Europe and abroad. And I think looking at contractors who can work on your business for any key set skill, you can work with them for certain hours a week. And what happens is you can actually see if they're any good. And that's quite a key thing. Whenever you're hiring someone, it's sometimes hard to find, full-time if they're good until they actually get stuck in. But with contractors, you can find out immediately. And what happens then is you can scale them up to work full-time into the business. And, with remote and agile working growing, I think, in big corporations as well as startups, I feel like, we're going to be seeing a lot more of this, and a lot of people that are currently in full-time work are going to be moving to a more of a remote working, part-time working to fit around their schedule.
Yeah, it's certainly a big kind of global trend that it's possible to capitalize on now, isn't it? The people who are willing to not have the London or the New York salary in order to have a better quality of life, but who are still high quality talent.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, it's also the people that are doing this, it's also easier to hold people accountable for what they're doing. When we're having weekly catch-ups with our team members, it's really easy to dive into what needs to be looked at and what needs to be done. And you don't get much of the office politics when you're sitting within 4 walls. It's focused work. People know what they have to do, and we're all driving towards the same purpose and mission, for us, which is to save as many eyes as possible. And whenever we're touching base, it's always focus orientated, and we know we have our goals in sight.
Very cool. Now, you mentioned earlier that you started off by setting up that Wix site and you got 500 pre-orders to it, and that's as I know that you really have focused on the organic growth and the bootstrapping side of growing your business, and the 500 orders pre-order kind of really speaks to that for me, because it shows that you weren't about the growth and the glory. You're about creating a business that will sustainably grow over the years. Would you say that kind of fits with your philosophy?
Yeah, I'd have to agree. I mean, for me, it's always been about creating the best product possible for consumers. And I think up until, maybe actually just January this year, we've actually finalized our core offering, which is our screen filter products for smartphone, tablets, and monitors, which we've now made best as possible. And what I mean by that is, we've looked at the whole customer journey. For example, our screen protectors for smartphones, we've created a unique applicator which allows people to put their screen protectors on in a two-step system, which means you get less returns, happier customers. We've looked at all of that. And now what's exciting for me is we've got a product which is really ready. We've got proven sales, and now we're ready to actually grow our marketing endeavors because we have a product that's fully ready for the market.
Yeah, it's kind of like almost a long R&D stage, isn't it? But with actually making money along the way.
Exactly, yeah. And I like to see, and that's great for kind of product reiteration as well. You get the feedback, you work on it, and then you make the product better. And then you can, then now we can actually look at huge mass market volumes, because especially if you're looking at the offline space or growing globally, you want consumers to be happy, and you only can do that by having a quality product.
You mentioned the offline space there. What made you decide to start wholesaling as well as selling direct?
So last year, around Q3, Q4, we started getting inbound inquiries from retailers, actually. So directly from Selfridges, Urban Outfitters in the USA, the Conran Shop, which is a boutique set of stores in Europe. And they wanted to sell our products. And, for a brand which is just focused online, it means you're kind of doing something right, and the market is also maturing, your brand resonates with people. I think we saw, well, if they're coming to us, then why aren't we going out to retailers? So, that kind of set up a strategy for us to start looking at the offline piece. And for example, we are quickly on top of that. For example, we exhibited at CES this year in January, and
wow.
We had a sprint towards that to kind of set up meetings for clients to come to visit us there, retailers or distributors across the globe. And, we're now working those into the pipeline so we can start looking at how we can actually look at the offline piece, because what we see is it's an omni-channel approach. We know customers find products in retail, or they see them online and they want to actually feel them in retail, or they want to buy at a different time online. So, this mix and match is what the consumer wants. And for us to achieve what we want to achieve, we feel we need to be in, all the different touch points for consumers.
What an amazing sign that you're doing something right if you've got the buyers from Selfridges and Urban Outfitters and Conran coming to you. I mean, that's when you consider how many pitches they must get of products day in, day out, for them to actually come and chase you down, that totally says you're doing something right. But what I wanted to ask you about was, you said, this mix and match approach, it kind of, I was getting the vibes that it doesn't really matter where the customer buys it so long as they buy it. I guess that your freedom and your acceptance of that as a way to go, as a route to growth, comes back to that mission to save as many eyes as possible. So it's not about growing your e-commerce business, it's about saving as many eyes as possible.
Yeah, I think, I when I was growing the business, I looked at what the purpose is behind the business, and I had a deep look in and said, what we're doing here is for the consumer's well-being, and we want to be able to reach consumers all over the globe, and we only can do that by the different mediums. I think because we've grown directly, it's important to remember that direct to consumer allows the most margin. So whenever you're growing, you can be cash flow positive to then look at offline endeavors or trade shows, etc. If you start a business that goes straight into wholesale, it's very tight margins. You get, some people have terms where if they don't sell the product, they send it back and you get paid in 60 days. All of this, is not ideal for a new business. So, the direct to consumer piece, as well as on Amazon, is very important when you're starting off, to build the cash, to build the margin, and then you can afford to do the other pieces.
You've also got the control, haven't you? When it's your own site and it's your own account on Amazon.
Yeah,
you're in control of everything. Well, barring Amazon.
Yeah. So you can't, it allows you to be in control of as much as possible, I'd like to say. And again, in the Amazon landscape, if you can be in control, it serves you so much better, because once you start looking at distribution and offline piece, if you start selling to other people, let's say a distributor, you've got to really think about how that distributor is going to interact with your product and how they'll sell it, because there's nothing stopping them selling on Amazon. But if you can control your Amazon listing and you're the brand registered, you can try to have more of a say in that, and make sure your prices are not dropping, because as you may know, and as the listeners may know, once you're on Amazon, if other people start selling your products, what they'll do is they'll just start discounting the product, and then your RRPs drop, and your brand is finished effectively, because no one's going to want to buy a product from you with, let's say our smartphone products are £24.99. If it drops down to £10, your brand is gone overnight effectively if it sticks at that price.
And going to CES, I have to ask you about CES. So I'm kind of going to squeeze the question in here. That's a huge show and a huge investment of time and people, money, and setting up the stand and all the rest of it. How difficult a decision was it to decide that was where you needed to go? Right, rather than a tiny show somewhere else, I suppose.
Yeah, I think that the pieces kind of aligned for us, because at that time we had that realization in the Q3, Q4 segment. We also work with the Department of International Trade in the UK, and fortunately, they also subsidised some of the costs to go to CES. So they gave a bit of the money back, which helps. But more importantly, we started working with 2 sales agents who have previously worked for companies such as Morphe and UBS Robotics, and they sold product into key retailers, key distribution channels in the consumer electronic space, which we are in effectively. And it was, going to a trade show, you can't expect a lot from just being there. I think most of the work happens before, which a lot of people don't realize. And, we secured these agents before the trade show, before January, for example, so we could start looking at how we can bring people to the stand before even the trade show opened its doors. And I'd say 70% of our key leads and relationships that were built at CES was the work that was done beforehand, and only 30% was of people walking past, or the flow.
And now, as we record this in early February or mid-February, I'm guessing you're quite busy following up as well.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of following up going on, and with the whole offline piece, it takes a few months for things to come into place. Also, you have to start distributing stock into different areas, and at the moment, as many suppliers might have, the Far East problem of the coronavirus is obviously affecting supply chains for us in some of our lines. So it also causes us to, delay things. But yeah, lots of following up.
Oh, there's always more challenges, though, aren't there? As soon as you deal with one, along comes another. Yeah. Now, something else I want to ask you about, Dhruvin, is you're selling a product which kind of nobody really knows. Well, we all hear a lot about blue light, but I think a lot of people would think, well, we just chuck on the blue light filter when I remember and it'll be all right. So are you, as well as trying to tell people, make sure they buy your product when they want something, do you have to spend quite a lot of effort in kind of educating the consumers that they need your product in the first place? So kind of like creating your own market, as it were?
Yeah, really good question. I think for us, because we started so early on in the blue light journey, I think organically, as more research comes out from universities and research bodies, journalists are naturally picking up on the blue light problem. And what's worked out very well for us is, because we're effectively a market leader for blue light terms, for example, blue light screen protector, or how to test blue light filters, we're appearing on these search results. So for journalists, they're looking for who are the thought leaders in this space, who are the experts. And for us, with our backgrounds in optometry and what we're trying to solve, we're fortunate enough to be able to give the correct advice to these journalists, and also get them to mention us and to showcase what we're doing. So we're fortunate enough to get very nice backlinks. We get great mentions, which is kind of our PR piece. And we're also really active on that. We know that not every journalist who writes about blue light is going to find us. So whenever blue light is mentioned, we're also trying to follow up with journalists, whether it be Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, to say, hey, look, we know what we're doing in the space. If you want any more information, any more literature, we're happy to share that with you.
E-commerce Master Plan is supported by some of the greatest companies in the e-commerce sector. Here's a reminder of who they are.
How are the leading D2C brands growing their business? They're using Klaviyo, the growth marketing platform chosen by over 28,000 global innovative online brands. Klaviyo believes in supporting growth, which is why they won't tie you into lengthy contracts, hidden setup or support fees, or feature-based pricing. With a platform that is both powerful and easy to use, it's no surprise so many brands have switched to Klaviyo. Looking for one more compelling reason? Brands switching to Klaviyo see an average of 62 times ROI on their investment. Ready to learn more? Visit klaviyo.com/masterplan. That's KLAVIYO.com/masterplan. With SendPro Online from Pitney Bowes, you can simply print postage stamps and shipping labels even when working remotely. For as low as $4.99 a month, you'll get access to special discounts and save up to 40% off USPS Priority Mail. Plus, for being an e-commerce masterplan listener, you'll receive a free 30-day trial to get started and a free £10 scale to ensure that you never overpay. That includes being able to schedule package pickups and track shipments from departure to arrival. Go to pb.com/masterplan to access this special offer for a free 30-day trial plus a free £10 scale to get started. That's pb.com/masterplan to experience savings in your shipping costs with a free trial of SendPro Online from Pitney Bowes.
It's time for the top tips round.
I love this section because it gives me and our listeners some really quick ideas for taking our business to the next level. So, Dhruvin, you ready for the top tips?
Let's go.
Okay. Now, I know you listen to the show, so I'm expecting some really good answers here because you know what's coming up.
No pressure.
Okay. Yeah, no pressure at all. Okay, the book top tip. If everyone listening to this podcast agreed to take Friday off and read a book to make their business better, which book would you recommend?
So I actually recently picked this up, and this has been a really amazing book in looking at how we grow in the future. So it's actually a book called Traction. It's by Gabrielle Weinberg and Justin Mares, and it looks at about 19 different customer acquisition channels, and it allows you to quickly test each channel out and realize which one's going to be working for you to then put more investment into it.
A properly cool book. I wholeheartedly back you on that recommendation. Okay, the traffic top tip. Which marketing method do you either prize above all others or think doesn't get the press it deserves?
Yeah, so I touched on this earlier. I think with any business, whatever you're doing, there should be people talking about the niche or the topic you're operating in. I always say set up Google alerts on those keywords, and every day, spend half an hour reaching out to any journalists who have spoken about the topic. Use Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, build the rapport, but just speak to them and try to tell them what you're doing, and hopefully that lands a mention, and that's going to be generating traffic, but also it's long-term evergreen content, which is always going to be on the internet, because if it's a top-tier publication, they're very unlikely to delete that piece of content.
I love that as quite an easy way of doing PR. I know you mentioned it earlier before the top tips, and it's that idea of actually let's try and be helpful to the journalists who are already writing about this subject, rather than just going, here's my press release.
Mm-hmm.
It's a much more effective, but a much more human way of doing it, I think.
Yeah, because they're already thinking about it. 9 times out of 10, your job's already done because they're interested in the topic.
Exactly. So there you go, guys. Go set up some Google alerts. Okay, the tool top tip. Maybe a collaboration tool, a social media plugin, a phone app, or just a way of working. Is there a cool little tool that you use that makes you and your team more efficient from day to day?
I think listening from the podcast, I've heard all the normal ones, Slacks, the Trellos, the Asanas. Maybe something that people haven't heard of is we actually use a tool called Moneypenny. They might be just a UK company, but what they do effectively, because we are a digital first business, we like to deal with customer service, any inquiries all online. We realized this was quite naive because consumers like to also communicate with brands and companies in other means, i.e. the phone.
Mm-hmm.
But we didn't want to spend, we didn't want to have someone manning the phone, for example, especially if you're a global e-commerce business. You can't have someone 24 hours a day, well, you can, but, it's not ideal. So we use a service called Moneypenny, where it's a service where they have people waiting on the lines to answer our phone calls. And what they do is they pass on the messages to us and the team. So that could be order inquiries about chasing up an order, and what we can do in a timely manner is get back to them via the phone or an email. And that's really helped us kind of look at our holistic customer service approach.
Very cool. Okay. Yeah. It's often can we avoid phone calls? It's a big thing, isn't it?
It is.
Unfortunately, some customers will still want to use them.
Yeah.
Okay, the growth top tip. If you met someone today who's focused on growing their e-commerce business from 100 orders per month to 1,000, what would be your number one tip for them?
Speaking from experience, I think I spent a lot of my time the first 1 and 2 years shipping out product. I'd say look at how whatever you're doing a lot of, if it's not involved in business development or something that requires you, try to look at how to, outsource that or bring in some expertise. Once we moved to a fulfillment center, I just found that I was able to work on the business a lot more, grow a team, raise investment. You need to be looking at how to free up your time.
And do you wish you'd outsourced the pick and pack earlier?
I definitely do. I mean, I spent a lot of evenings and late nights after work shipping orders. So yeah, I mean, I don't know why I didn't do it earlier, to be honest.
I think it's one of those things which sometimes you don't necessarily realize you can outsource at a very small stage. I mean, like 10 years ago, if you didn't have volume, it was completely uncost effective to go to a third party logistics provider, someone who would pick and pack for you. These days, there are businesses set up which, if you're only doing 1 unit a month, you can still effectively outsource. It's really amazing how that part of the market's come on.
It has, it's changed incredibly, and I think it's something definitely to look at. And I think for anyone starting, in the beginning, for a few months, if you can, do it yourself, because there's no better feeling than shipping out your goods to a customer. But once that wears off, then just have that in the back of the mind that looking at fulfillment centers is going to be the next point of call.
Now, I'm going to take a rough guess that a lot of listeners listen to this whilst they're picking and packing. So hopefully a couple of you have literally stopped mid-parcel fill and gone, why am I doing this? This is no longer fun. Dhruvin, thank you for giving a couple of people that light bulb moment and for sharing so much with us today on the show. It's been really cool to hear about it all. But before we say goodbye, can you let them know where to find you and the business online, please?
Yeah, sure. So you can find us online at ocushield.com. So that's OCUSHIELD. And our social media handles are @OccuShield. That's on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. And we also have a discount code for any listeners that want any Ocushield products via our website. If you enter Master Plan at checkout, you'll get 10% off.
That's very generous of you. Thank you very much. Okay, Dhruvin, thank you so much for being on the podcast today. Thank you for being a listener too. You shared so much with us. It's been an absolute pleasure. So lots to learn there about kind of more the bootstrapping side of things, growing steadily as you learn and iterate your product, as you learn the marketing, as you build your virtual team. And I think it's always really interesting how constraints and restrictions that we've got force us to do things potentially better than we would have done had we had all the time and all the money in the world. So with Dhruvin having to complete his optometrist training whilst launching the business, that's created a really interesting scenario where he's got these remote working team members and where he's able to adapt quite quickly to take advantage of things. And how cool must that have been to have been getting inbound inquiries for your product from some of the top retailers around the world, and the high end ones too. Very, very cool. So I'm sure you guys learned quite a bit in that episode. So if you want to get the notes from the show, including the top tips, links, details of related episodes, and confirmation of that discount code, then head over to ecommercemasterplan.com/podcast, where you'll find a link to this show. And Dhruvin is on the show today because he's a fan of the show. He's a regular listener, and he filled in our application form to be a guest. If you would like to follow in his footsteps and come and join me to record an episode and tell people about your business, then head to ecommercemasterplan.com/podcast and click on the link to become a guest. It's as easy as that. I hope you have a great week. Keep optimizing.
Thank you for listening to the E-commerce Master Plan podcast. Find out more at ecommercemasterplan.com/podcast.